Part 73. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 721. Chapter 721. The tower is a world of its own. Yuan felt much more comfortable after packing up the diamond bear. She took a long breath and left the space. Thinking that the spiritual energy inside was so strong, Yuan simply dug a cave, set up a star formation, and started practicing. She wanted to improve her cultivation level as soon as possible. She didn't know why, but she felt a little uneasy in her heart, so she wanted to improve her cultivation level immediately. Yuan calmed down and started practicing. Outside, Ming Ao refined the formation pillars, used space magic to send the formation pillars to the Baisha divine realm, and then set up the formation base here in his palace of Tiandao sect. Looking at his results, Ming Ao smiled with satisfaction. Tianyan, who was in Baisha realm, felt a violent spatial fluctuation. He immediately followed it and saw 4 formation pillars. Ming Ao was not so high profile this time. He sent the formation pillar to a remote place. However, the fluctuation was a bit large and was discovered by Tianyan. When Tianyan saw the sudden appearance of the formation pillar, he was shocked and immediately went back to wake Yaoji up. Ruo wake up. Tianyan shouted for a long time before he woke up Yaoji. What's wrong? Yaoji was still dizzy and asked, rubbing her eyes. Go into your space quickly, Master is here to find you, Tianyan said anxiously. As soon as Yaoji heard this, her drowsiness disappeared. She panicked and asked, Tianyan, we are afraid that we won't be able to escape his space magic when we enter the space. There shouldn't be much of a problem. I added the God Crystal Stone in the space and the treasure Wei gave me. He won't be able to find it for a while. As long as there are no spatial fluctuations or divine power fluctuations, it will be difficult to find them. Then let's leave the palace quickly and find a hidden place to enter the space. Yaoji calmed down and said. Okay, let's leave now. Tianyan didn't even say hello to the 4 god lords. He hugged Yaoji and flew out of the palace, heading towards the extreme west, where there are few divine powers and no one is active in that area. Tianyan arrived in a few teleports, and then escaped thousands of feet underground before stopping. Ruo remember, Wei and I are not here to come, so you must not come out or make any move. Tianyan warned him repeatedly before entering the space. Yeah, I understand, you too. They all have divine eyes and can completely see everything outside. If anyone comes looking for them, they can see it. Don't be afraid of anyone using deception. The 2 of them found an inconspicuous place and quickly entered the space. As soon as Yaoji entered the space, she felt sleepy and went to sleep again. On the other side, Ming Ao activated the formation with great excitement. When the formation flashed with light, Ming Ao ducked into the formation. When he came out of the formation, he immediately searched for Tianyan and his wife, as well as Yuan, in the God realm. One of the 2 is his disciple, the other is her daughter in the literal sense, and the other is the person he wants to kill. Looking for them, Ming Ao will naturally have a way to find them. But he searched all over the God realm and couldn't find anyone. No way, isn't it here? Ming Ao was in an irritated mood. There was clearly their presence here, so how could they not be here? Did they find out and run away early? Damn it, Ming Ao cursed. So Ming Ao used his space technique to search carefully in Baisu realm again. However, the space between Tianyan and the 2 of them was filled with divine crystals, and Tianyan's weapon refining skills were no worse than his, so he searched Baisu realm again. There is no searching. Ming Ao was so angry that he strengthened the formation and left Baisha realm, then returned to Tianxia realm and sent the formation pillars to the other 3 realms. Then search one area after another. Ming Ao had no choice but to return to Dongxia realm and send people to guard him. He didn't believe that they never showed up. Yuan didn't know in the Divine Tower that Ming Ao had already connected to the five-axis realm in just a few decades, and she had just completed her cultivation. This time of seclusion, it took 50 years to improve his cultivation to the late stage of divine being. This speed made Yuan clap his hands. Ah, Yuan stood up and stretched. She took up the space and continued to go out to fight the mythical beast. The fastest way to improve your cultivation is in battle. After 1,000 years of waiting, Yuan's cultivation level was directly promoted to the early stage of Earth God. The amazing thing is that one can survive thunder tribulations in the tower, which means that the tower is actually a complete world. Yuan was thinking, can Mujukan survive the disaster here? Being able to survive calamities, this tower is said to be another realm of cultivation. Yuan thought about it and entered the space, and went to Han Mountain to ask Ming Xiao. Ming Xiao listened thoughtfully. He had not thought of that place before, but it was in the God realm. Now that he thought about it, it was true that as Yuan said, the God Tower had nothing to do with the five-axis realm. People in ancient times knew that the Divine Tower was an alien thing from heaven and was not something native to Wushu. The Divine Tower should be like the five-axis realm, forming a cultivation system of its own. After a while, he also expressed his thoughts to Yuan. Yuan nodded. Her grandfather's idea coincided with hers. In fact, her space was similar to that of a sacred tower. It did not belong to any cultivation world, but was a world of its own. Ming Xiao said, "Let him try it." "Well, that's what I have planned." "Let him try it. If he succeeds, he won't be worried about becoming a god. If he fails, he will have to come to Soul Mountain to rebuild. It is not only difficult to find a suitable cultivation world, but it is also not something that can be found overnight. I don't know how long it will be until her cultivation level is promoted to the level of God Lord or God Emperor. By then, Mujukan has retrained countless times. Why not take a gamble, just in case you win?" Yuan came directly to Mujukan's training room. Mujukan, who had a sad look on his face, saw that she was here. He calmed down the sadness on his face and said with a smile, "What's wrong with Wan'er?" Since there is no divine power in the space except Han Mountain, Mujukan built a cave to live on Han Mountain. He does not practice immortal power, but he has always absorbed soul power. The soul has been getting stronger, and the body cannot keep up with the soul. Now there is an imbalanced trend. The body is weak but the soul is strong. If you continue like this, you will still be in danger of exploding your body. Yuan sat down and told Mujukan about the sacred tower. After hearing this, Mujukan nodded without hesitation, "Wan'er, I'm going to give it a try. If this continues, my body will lose balance and both sides will be exposed to explosion or reconstruction. I'm willing to try. If you don't succeed, you will become a benevolent person." "Okay, let's go out to the Eastern Immortal Realm." Yuan hugged him, got up and left. The plan could not keep up with the changes, so Yuan had to leave the tower. In the middle of the first floor, there is a teleportation array, which is the teleportation array. This is what Yuan thought of. Here is another reason for the cultivation world. The people who died here were really dead and were not teleported out. There is no need for a sacred stone to go out, just stand on it. Yuan stood on the teleportation array. The formation was activated in an instant, and Yuan was teleported out. Yuan came out of the teleportation array and found that she was not around the tower. She immediately entered the space and returned to the Dongshu immortal world through the gate. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 722. Chapter 722, Arresting People. Coming to Dongshu immortal realm, Yuan came out of space to build a cave. As soon as she came out, she was locked by a divine consciousness. She was shocked and immediately dodged into the space. As soon as she entered the space, a divine man suddenly appeared where she was standing. God, Yuan frowned and looked at the person with confusion. The visitor used his spiritual sense to scan there. Just now he clearly found the person the sect was looking for, but he disappeared in the blink of an eye. He was sure that Yuan had not escaped. Strange, it's obviously her, but I'm not dazzled, the man of God said to himself. Yuan heard that the seemed to be specifically looking for someone, looking for her? Looking at that person's cultivation, he is already a god. It is impossible for Yuhairan and others to come looking for her. Besides, they don't have the strength to go down to the immortal world. Yuan didn't think he was looking for her. It was probably a coincidence. After the man of God left, she came out of space. But as soon as she came out, she was locked again. Instead of entering the space, she waited for the man of God and asked why. But she didn't wait for anyone, what she waited for was a prison. Yuan frowned, she remained calm and allowed the godly man to imprison her. In a moment, the man of God caught her and brought her to a teleportation formation in the God realm. The man of God threw the divine stone on the teleportation array and waited for the teleportation array to activate. Yuan was shocked when she saw the teleportation array. She now understood who was arresting her. At first glance, this teleportation array was set up by Ming Ao. Yuan sighed at Ming Ao's ability, and at the same time, her consciousness entered the space. Now was not the time to confront him head-on. She was worried about her parents. Ming Ao caught her here, and he must have gone to Baisha realm to catch them both. As for Yuhairan and the others, Ming Ao didn't know about their existence at all, so he went to Baisha realm first. The divine man saw that the formation was about to be activated, but the man disappeared out of thin air. Only then did he realize that what the sect master said was true. Even he could not restrain this little goddess. The man of God has no choice but to guard this world arduously. The sect leader has his life, and if he doesn't get the person, he doesn't have to go back. And when Yuan came to Baisha realm, she thought that there were people guarding Dongsha realm there, so there must be people guarding here as well. So Yuan came to the shrine invisibly, and sure enough, there was no one in the shrine. Yuan didn't know whether her parents had entered the dimension or been taken away by Ming Ao, so she had to show up and give it a try. But not in the palace of God. She teleported to the far west. She thought there would be few people here, which was exactly what Tianyan thought. Yuan just appeared, and sure enough, 4 rays of consciousness locked onto her and surrounded her instantly. Little goddess, where are Goddess Tianyan and Goddess Yaji? One of the God Emperor realm gods stared at her and asked. As soon as Yuan heard what he said, she knew that her parents had not been captured and must have entered the space. She raised her lips and said, "Is it my good grandpa who asked you to arrest us? What the goddess said is right. How can I call it arrest? She is asking you and your family to go back. How can the king of Tianxia realm come to Baisha realm to be the master god?" The god-man of the god emperor realm said calmly. Yuan despised Ming Ao in her heart and asked him back because she didn't want others to know his sinister side. She crossed her arms and said, "Please go back and tell him that we will not go back. Of course you can't catch me. He can't do anything to me, let alone you. Don't waste this time here." After saying that, her consciousness moved into the space. The scene here happened to be seen by Tianyan, and he breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his daughter entering the space. The 4 of them were about to scold Yuan, a little earth god, for speaking so arrogantly, but they were afraid that the wind would flash their tongues. Whoever their sect leader was, he couldn't catch her, so no one would believe it. It can be seen that after Yuan disappeared out of thin air, they realized that Yuan was not lying, but the truth. The 4 of them are not calm anymore. This little goddess has a treasure in her body. But they soon came to their senses, and they thought about it, who didn't know that Tianyan was the disciple of the sect master, and the son-in-law of the sect master, and this little goddess was the granddaughter of the sect master. As for sending them to invite their family to go back, that is a family matter and not something they should know. They just need to perform their tasks. Moreover, they dare to kill people and seize treasures because they don't want to live. Now that the 5 realms are connected, where can they escape if they succeed? The 4 of them saw that Yuan had disappeared, so they had to send one person back to report the situation, while the other 3 stayed there. Seeing that they hadn't left, Yuan didn't know where to find her parents, so she had to come to the fairy world from the realm gate, put on the wanyan that Tianyan had refined for her, and exchanged it for a fairy stone that was enough for Mujukan. Back to space. In the space, Mujukan asked Yuan why she didn't go out to practice. Yuan told Ming Ao what happened. Mujukan said in a deep voice, "Then I will practice in the space. Waner must be careful when going out." "Well, I know you practice, and I'll take the sons to space." Yuan is still worried about the 2 treasures. If she is not afraid of 10,000, then she is afraid of the worst. She found the 2 treasures from the space, as well as Yu Haoshan and the others, and put them all into the space before returning to the Baisha divine realm. She was worried that Tianyan and the others would be arrested when they came out. She remembered that her mother was still pregnant with the child. When they arrived at Baisha realm, Yuan had no choice but to show up. The face that appeared was one that Tianyan and the others had seen before. Tianyan and the others know that she has many faces. As long as they see her, they will definitely know that it is her. Sure enough, Tianyan recognized Yuan as soon as she appeared. He immediately sent a message, "Wire has come to the far west." Upon hearing this, Yuan was stunned for a moment, and then quickly reached the far west. She was standing on a mountain. The 3 people who were guarding saw that he was a stranger, so they didn't pay attention. Tianyan, who was underground, carefully came out of the space and stood there for a while. Suddenly, Yaoji appeared in front of her. More than 1,000 years later, Yaoji also became pregnant. Tianyan picked her up distressedly and sent a message to Yuan, "Wire, we are thousands of feet underground, hurry up." Upon hearing this, Yuan immediately flashed into the space, then looked for the 2 people from the boundary gate and took them into the space. At the same time, the 3 people discovered that Yuan disappeared out of thin air, and they realized that they had been deceived. That person was Yuan. When they caught up with him, it was already too late. In the space, Tianyan and Yaoji let out a long sigh of relief and finally escaped from danger. "How are you, mother?" Yuan asked. Yaoji smiled and said, "Mom, there's nothing wrong. She just wants to sleep." In order to pay attention to the outside world, she had stayed awake for more than 1,000 years, fearing that she would miss her daughter coming to see her. "Wire, don't go looking for him, improve your strength first," Tianyan said to Yuanyi after listening to Yaoji's words, and then escaped with Yaoji in his arms. Yuan stood there and smiled before going to look at Mujukan. Mujukan was practicing at the moment, so she went back, planning to go to the Divine Tower and let Liangbao and the others go inside to improve their strength. She came to the Sacred Tower from the Realm Gate again. After selling the things she was going to sell at the door, she entered the Sacred Tower. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 723. Chapter 723 Mujukan breaks through the Divine Man. In the Divine Tower, Yuan moved the 2 treasures, Yu Haoran and the others out. As long as she could get in, she could steal them. "Wow, 4th sister, where is this place with such strong divine power?" Xiao Wu took a deep breath and asked. "This is the Sacred Tower of Tianxia Realm. This is a good place for practice and experience." Yuan told them about the situation here, and then said, "The mythical beasts here are very ferocious. You must be careful. If you can't win, go back to space. Don't fight forcefully." Everyone nodded, and everyone was eager to give it a try. They wanted to go to the magical beast to practice right away. No wonder, they saw her ascending so late, and now she has surpassed them and entered the Earth God. "Mom, we're going now, you have to be careful," Liang Bao took the lead. "Mom knows, you two should be careful." Yuan then moved the little snake out and asked him to follow the two treasures. Then came Yu Heiran and the others, and Yuan also asked Da He, Xiaoqing, and Jin Long to follow them and protect them only when necessary. When she was left alone, Yuan also went to find a third-level mythical beast to practice. She wants to wait for Mujukan to practice to the point of transcending the tribulation. So she started practicing again while fighting. These days passed quickly, 1,000 years passed by like this, and Mujukan was finally going to survive the catastrophe. This time, Yuan deployed the Star Continent and moved Mujukan out after completing the deployment. Mujukan came out and sat in the formation to absorb the immortal energy, waiting to break the shackles and attract the tribulation thunder. But I didn't see any movement in the sky for a long time after I came out. Supposedly, there was at least some movement in the sky, indicating that he was going to survive the catastrophe. "Wan'er, can't you do that?" Mujukan was disappointed. Yuan stared at the sky in a daze. Couldn't she? The last time she overcame the calamity thunder came quickly. She looked at Mujukan worriedly. Could it be that she had to abandon her cultivation and rebuild it this time? Mujukan was disappointed in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He comforted Yuan in turn. "Wainer, don't worry, wait a little longer." Yuan nodded, wondering what else to do. Mujukan was actually more nervous than Yuan. He really didn't want to rebuild endlessly. He looked at the sky expectantly, hoping that the thunder would fall, and at the same time, his body kept absorbing the fairy stones on the ground. Just like this, 1 day passed, 2 days passed, 3 days passed. 10 days have passed, and Mujukan's body can no longer absorb any immortal power. Yuan's eyes were filled with tears. She couldn't help crying. She walked over and hugged Mujukan tightly. Mujukan's eyes were dark. He wiped away Yuan's tears and kissed her gently. "Wan'er, don't cry. It's a big deal that my husband will rebuild his body again. It's no big deal. In any case, he won't really fall. Even if he can't become a god, he can still accompany Wan'er." After thinking about it, Mujukan gave up on absorbing the immortal power and allowed the divine power in the air to be absorbed by his body. He doesn't care now. It doesn't matter whether he wants this body or not. He has a completely broken mentality. However, it was his mentality of breaking things that made him successful. The two of them hugged each other selflessly in the star formation. Yuan was so sad that she didn't even notice Mujukan's physical changes at this moment. When the divine power entered Mujukan's body, he was startled by the stinging pain. However, the two of them hugged each other, and he couldn't bear to separate. He wanted to hold them for a while longer. After this time, they would probably have to break up. After breaking up, he didn't know when he would be able to rebuild his body. At this time, he could hold him for more. Hold her for as long as you want. And he didn't bother to care about the tingling pain in his meridians caused by the divine power. He simply used his exercises to send the divine power to his Danshan. Just like this, when the divine power reached Danshan, his sea of consciousness buzzed. Mujukan was stunned. Did he break the shackles? Boom. At this time, there was a sound of thunder in the sky. "Wan'er, leave quickly, the thunder is coming." Mujukan lifted Yuan's head, kissed her heavily on the lips, and said excitedly and hastily. Yuan finally realized what she was doing. She smiled through her tears, nodded her head, and immediately entered the space with a movement of consciousness. She stared blankly at the changing color of the sky in the space. This surprise came too quickly and suddenly. Yuan pinched her thigh hard, and when she felt the pain, she truly realized that this was not an illusion, this was real. She smiled stupidly. After thousands of journeys, Mujukan finally became a god. Outside, Mujukan kept running his skills to compress the immortal power in his Danshan. At this time, he finally understood why the thunder tribulation had been delayed. The reason was that he had been absorbing the immortal power to break through, instead of absorbing the divine power here. If you don't absorb it, how can you feel that you are making a breakthrough? Mujukan tried his best to suppress the excitement in his heart and concentrate on making a breakthrough. Time passed little by little, and just like Yuan's time, when all the immortal power in his Danshan was transformed into divine power, thunder from the sky fell. In the space, Yuan covered her mouth, crying with joy. This long-awaited thunder disaster has just come. Mujukan's 99 and 81 thunder catastrophes took 81 days to complete. The moment the chop was completed, the entire sky on the first floor was a fiery red, so dazzling, and so exciting. Yuan stepped out of the space at this moment, and sat next to Mujukan with a smile like a flower, feeling his current aura. At this time, Mujukan was in a network space, surrounded by 6 six-pointed star arrays. Mujukan looked at the 6-pointed star array and felt it was so familiar. He felt strange as to why he had come here inexplicably. For a while, he wanted to walk out of here but was restrained by an invisible force. Mujukan was stunned for a long time. He looked at the 6 hexagonal star arrays in anguish. If he couldn't get out, then he had to dismantle the array. He sat down and let go of his consciousness to look at each formation one by one. Why do these 6 star arrays look so much like the curse seal? After watching it for a while, Mujukan understood why it looked so familiar. Isn't it the curse mark in his heart? It is so clear at this moment that his divine body has been completed and the curse seal has been completely revealed. It's just that he still doesn't understand how he got here. He estimated that he was afraid that he would have to break the curse before he could get out. Then break it? He remembered that Yuan had discussed with him how to break the curse seal. Now that he was the only one here, he had to break it alone. Fortunately, his soul has become a soul body. Although it is difficult to separate the 6 clones, it is not impossible. Mujukan did not rush to separate his soul first, but first understood the 6 star arrays. The 6 star arrays were very complicated and not as simple as ordinary restrictions. Yuan sat with Mujukan for 10 days. When she saw that he was still motionless, she realized something was wrong. Her consciousness swept across Mujukan's body and found that his soul was not in the sea of consciousness, but in the curse seal. Now the curse mark is very obvious, as big as an egg. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 724. Chapter 724, Undoing the Curse. Mujukan's soul was sitting in the middle of the curse seal, with his eyes closed. Yuan was horrified. She didn't expect that Mujukan's soul was imprisoned by the curse seal after his cultivation level had broken through. Although there was no explosion, Mujukan was inevitably imprisoned by this curse seal. Yuan thought that this should be a backup move by Shang Yuanshenren. If there was a breakthrough somewhere, the soul would be imprisoned by the curse seal. Now, Mujukan must untie it himself, otherwise he will be imprisoned there forever. Thinking of what her grandpa said, the person who cast the curse had used essence and blood when casting the curse, Yuan was very worried. She wondered if Mujukan could undo it. Yuan wants to scold her, but why is Po Shangyuan so cruel? This is not giving the Suzaku clan a way to survive. It seems that they have another powerful enemy. Yuan doesn't care. Anyway, if there are too many lice, they are not itchy, so they will be taken away when the time comes. Mujukin's enlightenment took 1,000 years, but Yuan's cultivation reached the level of the earth god, and he only completed it. But the effort was not in vain, it made him understand it thoroughly. After the soul became a soul body, Mujukin understood things much faster. In the past, those who had comprehended Waner for 8,000 years might not even be able to touch it. After comprehending it, Mujukin memorized the curse seal firmly and burned it into the jade slip after leaving here. Maybe it can be used in the future, and he can also cast a spell on someone. As for how to interpret him, he already knows it well. On the eyes of the 6-star arrays, there are faint red dots, which are the essence and blood of the person who cast the spell. The essence and blood cannot be touched, and a series of explosions will occur if touched. However, if the essence and blood experiences harm again, he can cultivate soul fire and completely burn it. He is trapped here, otherwise he can summon Nanming Liwo and use it directly. It's just that it's quite difficult to burn. He had to cultivate the 6 flames first, which was another difficult process. Mujukin took a deep breath and couldn't help but do the same thing. Having thoroughly understood the hexagonal star array, the next step was to practice soul fire. Fortunately, the divine soul technique he practiced was at the divine level, including the method of cultivating soul fire. Thanks to his fire spirit root, otherwise there really would be no other way. The next step is to divide the souls. After they are all divided, you still have to practice each soul until you are proficient in controlling the soul fire to burn the essence and blood accurately. After you become proficient in controlling the soul fire, you can use the soul to attack the 6 hexagonal star formation eyes at the same time. Controlling these 2 items, the time between attacks cannot be too long, and it must not exceed 1 breath. Wanting to master this speed is another challenge to Mujukin's strength and endurance. This is easy to say in a few words, but it is even more difficult to do it. After all, he has just been promoted to a god man, so how can he have strong strength? He can only take his time. Slowly, 5,000 years have passed, and Yuan's cultivation has reached the great perfection of the earth god, and she is waiting to be promoted to the god of heaven. Yu Heiran and the others went to the 2nd floor with Liangbao in the morning. Yuan was neither anxious nor annoyed, she just watched over Mujukin quietly. Mujukin is ready, and now comes the most critical moment. Only by breaking the 6-pointed star array can he go out. Mujukin took a deep breath, and with a movement of his consciousness, his soul body instantly separated into 6 phantoms. The phantoms were exactly the same as his real body, but they were virtual. Each virtual soul body has a red flame the size of a rice grain. This is the soul fire he has cultivated over the years. And this soul fire can be controlled by her consciousness, and it can be large or small. 6 virtual soul bodies face 6 hexagonal star formations respectively. Mujukin's consciousness moved, and the flames on the 6 virtual soul bodies flew towards the formation eye with a whoosh sound at the same time. Mujukin controlled the flame to only burn the essence and blood, and not to burn anything else. Once it burned anything else, the 6-pointed star array would explode immediately. As soon as the flame touches the essence and blood, it will be enveloped and burned. As soon as the flame burned, the high temperature affected the formation eyes, so at the same time, a large amount of divine power was sucked in by the 6-pointed star array, and the 6-pointed star arrays immediately began to operate. Mujukin understood that after 1 breath, the 6 hexagonal star arrays expanded instantly and then exploded. He quickly sent out a stream of soul power towards the 6 hexagonal star arrays at the same time. Boom! 6 sounds that only he could hear rang out, but the formation was only shaken, not destroyed. This time it shocked the formation eye, and it was about to explode. At the critical moment, Mujukin gritted his teeth and used all his soul power to blast towards the formation eye at the same time. Boom! 6 more sounds. After the sound, the 6 hexagonal star formations instantly collapsed and dissipated, just as the 6 soul fires burned away the blood essence. At the same time, his soul suddenly returned to the sea of consciousness. Mujukin took a long breath, his heart was still beating wildly. It sounds so long, but what happened in just a breath, which shows how dangerous it was just now. Mujukin quickly withdrew his soul and soul fire, and his originally weak soul body felt better. He breathed a sigh of relief, still thinking about the previous scene. It was really dangerous. If the second strike hadn't failed, the 6-pointed star array would have exploded, and even this body would not be immune. Yuan outside will also suffer disaster. 6 star arrays explode at the same time. The power is so powerful that even the area within the star array can be razed to the ground. Yuan could see everything that happened in Mujukin's body clearly. She was not much better than Mujukin at that time. She was just as nervous. When she saw that his soul returned to the sea of consciousness and was fine, she and him same, let out a long sigh of relief. Yuan withdrew the star formation and took Mujukin into the space, allowing him to recover his soul on the Soul Mountain. At the same time, in the Tiandao sect's sacred land, Shang Yuan spat out blood while meditating, and his breath suddenly became weak. He opened his eyes filled with disbelief that the Suzaku clan had actually broken his curse. How can this be? Judging from the current survival of the Suzaku clan, how can they have the strength to break it? Could it be that some powerful person could break the curse for them? He knows the spell he casts very well. Those who do not know the spell and whose strength is lower than the strength of the deity cannot break his spell. This matter should not be underestimated. People from the Suzaku clan cannot be allowed to return to the God realm. Shang Yuan adjusted his breath well and immediately left the God realm. He found Ming Ao and told him about the matter and asked him to send people to investigate in the Wuxia realm. Found out that the of the Suzaku clan was killed without mercy. Ming Ao was glad that he had connected to the 5-axis realm, otherwise he would not have been able to complete the order given by his ancestor. So he sent people out to search with great fanfare. At the same time, the people who went out had another task, to find Yuan's family of 3. Yuan's family of 3 are very unhappy in the space right now. Once Mujukin's spell was solved, Yuan was happier than anyone else. While she was happy, she thought of Ming Xiao, a person on Han Mountain, who was supposed to get together with them. Unfortunately, her mother was about to give birth and she couldn't let her know about it yet. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 725. Chapter 725 Yao Ji knows. But the more Yuan wanted to hide it, the more she couldn't. Yao Ji had a magical eye. When she was wandering around the space for nothing, Yao Ji discovered Ming Xiao on the Soul Mountain. Ming Xiao and Ming Ao are brothers and look similar. At that time, Yao Ji thought it was Ming Ao and rushed into Han Mountain to question Ming Ao face to face as to why he was so cruel to their family. This is also a huge stone that has been weighing on her heart for so many years. She just wants to know. But she rushed in and stood in front of Ming Xiao, and when she felt that he was only a divine soul, and his aura was not that of Ming Ao, she was instantly petrified on the spot. When Ming Xiao saw his daughter, he felt so filled with emotions that he was speechless for a moment. He did not expect to meet his daughter in such a situation. Mingruo Ming Xiao called softly. "You, who are you?" Yao Ji asked excitedly. Seeing this person, Yao Ji's blood boiled. This person must be her closest relative, but who is it? At this time, Tianyan and Yuan also arrived. Tianyan stepped forward and picked up Yao Ji, sat down, and gently comforted her. "Ruo, don't get excited, listen to us." After saying that, he winked at Yuan. Yuan understood, and she asked Ming Xiao to sit down. "Mom, please calm down first and let your daughter tell you." "Okay," Yuan held Yao Ji's hand and said gently. Yuan had a headache. Her mother noticed it at this juncture. She looked at Yaoji's belly and hoped that the little brother in her belly would be strong and not affected by her mother's mood swings. Yaoji was in tears, stroking her belly and nodded. Wire said, "Mother needs to know." Ruoer, "Don't worry, Dad will tell you." Ming Xiao waved his hand to Yuan and said to Yaoji. "Dad." Yaoji looked around at Tianyan and his daughter, obviously shocked by the sound of Dad. Ming Xiao nodded. "Yes, I am your father. Ming Ao is just your second uncle, back then." Ming Xiao recounted what happened that year. Really, Yaoji was already in tears. It turned out to be like this. She asked how could her own father do such a thing as to kill her daughter. It is simply the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's just that it happened so suddenly and out of nowhere. Now that all the truth has been revealed, she still can't accept it for a while. It's true. Weir and I have known it for a long time. We were just worried that you wouldn't be able to bear it, so we didn't tell you. Tianyan kept paying attention to her. Yaoji looked at Ming Xiao, who was in a state of indigestion, and cried bitterly, "How could Ming Ao do this?" Yaoji never expected that Ming Ao killed their family out of jealousy. How dark this person's heart was. Even his own brother was killed. Tianyan comforted him. "Ruoer, all kinds of people exist in this world. As long as our family is still here, this is the happiest thing in the world. As a cultivator, as long as he is alive, he is the luckiest thing. Yes, mother, let's think on the bright side. In this world of cultivation, countless people die every day, and their relatives are the ones who suffer the most. At least our family is still alive. As for grandma, we have the strength. We will definitely save her when the time comes. For cultivators, we must dare to face it head on. It does not mean that we can just avoid the real problems and get over them. On the contrary, it will affect the state of mind. When you are going through the inner demon tribulation, these things that you usually avoid and dare not face directly will be magnified several times at that time, and the consequences of not being able to overcome it will be very miserable." Yaoji wiped away her tears after hearing this, and nodded to the three of them. "Don't worry, I understand the truth, but it's still sad to think about it. It will get better after a while." The three of them felt relieved after hearing this. They all breathed a sigh of relief. Yaoji is about to give birth now, and she is worried that she will not be able to think clearly, which will affect herself and her child. Ming Xiao wanted to touch Yaoji's head, but she felt weak because of it. He smiled bitterly and said, "Ruoer doesn't have to be sad. It was because my father didn't take precautions at the time that he got into trouble." Ming Xiao also regretted it endlessly. Why was he undefended at first? With his strength, how could he not be Ming Ao's opponent? It seems that he has too much trust in Ming Ao's character and thinks that they are brothers. Yaoji sat up straight and said quietly, "Dad, there is no need to blame yourself. My daughter knows who Ming Ao is better than you." From the time she could remember, she had no good impression of Ming Ao. At that time, she was the legitimate daughter and her life was worse than Ming Xian. Although she didn't understand why at that time, it didn't stop her from becoming wary of Ming Ao. At that time, what she was worried about was that Ming Ao would exchange her for something. In the world of cultivation, in order to consolidate, there was a marriage as well as in the secular world, and she never thought that Ming Ao would kill her. Later on, she couldn't wait to marry Tianyan. It's just that she was on guard against Ming Ao, but not Ming Xian. That sister Bilianhua, on the surface, looks like mother and daughter, but she is just as vicious as Ming Ao behind the scenes. She was really stupid at that time. Why didn't she see through her? It can only be said that she disguised herself too well. Yaoji took a deep breath. She must become stronger. After these things, she knew that being strong is the way to go. Wanting not to be crushed by others requires one's strength and one's character. She used to be too kind. "Father and daughter, please go out, I'll stay with Dad for a while, Yao Ji suddenly said. Tianyan and Yuan looked at each other, nodded, and the father and daughter got up and left Han Mountain. I don't know what Yao Ji and Ming Xiao said after that. After that day, Yao Ji seemed to be a different person, and the aura on her body became sharper. He is no longer the gentle person he used to be. Yuan sighed, not knowing whether this was good or bad for Yao Ji. Yuan waited until Mujukan had consolidated his cultivation, then took him out and let him improve his strength on his own, while she went to the second floor, where she could advance, and then went to the third floor. Not long after reaching the second level, she advanced. Then go directly to the third floor. The third level is much wider than the first level, just like another divine realm. There are many people living on this level, and just like the divine realm, there are also mortals who cannot cultivate. There are also cities, towns, and shrines floating in the air. Yuan was surprised to see it, so she hid herself and flew in the air to watch. These people should be coming to the God Tower to practice, or to avoid enemies and not want to go out. Yuan took a look at the monks. They all had the lowest level of cultivation in the realm of gods, and there were also true gods and god kings. The strength of those divine beasts are all at level 3 or above. Yuan's hands felt itchy when she saw those mythical beasts. Just when she was about to fight with the divine beasts, she saw several divine beings flying in and transmitting messages, so she let go of her divine ears and listened carefully. Let's go to Shenjian Gorge quickly, the concentrating flower there is about to mature, said. Really, senior brother, who did you hear that there is a concentrating flower there? I heard about it some time ago. Are you going? Let's go and have a look. We came here just to look for those magical medicines under the master's orders. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 726. Chapter 726 Concentration Flower. Concentrating flower. When Yuan heard the name, she immediately followed those people and flew away. The concentrating flower, this flower is very useful to Ming Xiao now. The concentrating flower is specially used to solidify the soul. She had picked a divine soul flower before and gave it to Ming Xiao to refine. His divine soul was solidified so quickly, but it was far from enough to help him solidify his divine soul body. But this concentrating flower can quickly solidify the soul body. On these 3 levels, the level of this flower is not high, but she can keep it on the soul mountain and give it to grandpa when it matures. At least it can shorten the time it takes for my grandfather to recover. Yuan estimates that he can recover 100,000 years ahead of schedule. Now he has only recovered to 1% of his former self. I don't know how long it will take before he fully recovers. Yuanzu followed a few people until they reached a very remote place, a deep canyon. It is better to say that it is a canyon than a valley surrounded by mountains. On a bare cliff, a red and white flower grew out of a crack in the rock. Yuan was delighted when she saw the sacred flower. It was indeed the concentrating flower. The flower is like a slightly curved palm, and the leaves are similar in shape to the flower. They are emerald green and have a diameter as thick as an arm. The unopened concentration flower has now emitted bursts of soul power, making the gods and men watching intoxicated. Yuan glanced at the people in the valley. There were at least hundreds of people here, and the one with the highest cultivation level was the god emperor. These people gathered around the concentrating flower and only watched without taking action. Those who are familiar with the concentrating flower know that it is useless to pick the concentrating flower before it is fully bloomed. When the flower blooms like an adult's open palm, it is mature and can play a real role in concentrating. Yuan was very happy. Once she encountered such a magical flower, she would naturally take it into her pocket. It didn't matter to her whether it bloomed or not. So Yuanshan entered the space, and then moved the concentration flower into the space from the boundary gate. Huh, why are you missing? Everyone was shocked. The concentrating flower actually disappeared in front of everyone. Did you move it? The God King next to the God King asked the God King. The God King was confused. He shook his head repeatedly. No, no, how can this junior have the ability to steal the divine flower under your nose? After saying that, the God King teleported away instantly. At first glance, the God Emperor was a crazy person. He knew that he didn't have that ability and still asked him. He had high cultivation, so he had to run away quickly. It is also possible for people to go crazy and kill people for no apparent reason. The God King ran away, which angered the God King. He became angry and struck at others with his wave of hands. Those with low cultivation level will be killed by him in one stroke. Suddenly the scene was like an exploding cauldron, with some running away and others fighting with the God Emperor. Yuan in the space had already planted the concentration flowers. She clapped her hands and sat on the Soul Mountain watching the melee. She just advanced this fight. When the flowers bloom, the fighting scene will be even more fierce. Everyone wants the concentration flower, and only the one who fights to the end can get it. Why is it possible? Because the concentrating flower and the soul flower have the same virtues. When the flower blooms, it will emit strong soul power, as if for fear that no one will know that it has bloomed. At that time, it can attract more men and beasts came. At that time, there were not so many people who died. Just when Yuan was about to leave, a large group of divine beasts suddenly came. They descended from the sky and surrounded the gods and men who were still fighting in the valley. Stop! The God Emperor shouted. Everyone stopped immediately, only to find that the mythical beast had made dumplings. Among the divine beasts that came, the one with the highest strength is a 6th level divine beast, which is equivalent to the strength of the God Emperor. The two of them looked at each other, mentally weighing whether they could beat each other. The 6th level divine beast took a look at the stone wall without the concentrating flower, and asked, "Excuse me, where did the concentrating flower go?" It seemed like a question, but the tone was very unkind. It turns out that the 6th level divine beast has been staying on the 3rd floor for the concentration flower. His partner injured his soul and is now unconscious and urgently needs the concentration flower. He has only been out for a few days, but when he comes back he has not seen the Ningxinhua. Do you think he is angry or not? The God Emperor is not a good-tempered person either. He said angrily, "How do I know this? Otherwise, how could he possibly fight with these people?" He also urgently needed the concentration flower to save his life, and he had also been on the 3rd floor for a long time. Who knew that the concentration flower could disappear out of thin air? The 6th level divine beast frowned, obviously displeased with the God Emperor's attitude. He raised his hands to the other gods present and said, "Everyone, does anyone know what is going on with the Ningxian flower? If you can tell the truth, I will be very grateful." The gods present looked at each other, wondering if the 6th level divine beast would believe this. After a long time, one of the gods in the realm of gods boldly said, "Senior, we actually don't know where the concentration flower has gone or who picked it. The flower didn't bloom at all at that time. We are all guarding here. How can he disappeared into thin air under everyone's eyes? If you don't believe it, Senior, you can ask the people present." "Yes, yes, what this fellow Taoist said is true," someone immediately agreed. The 6th level divine beast looked at the sullen God Emperor. The God Emperor said impatiently, "Look, I'm like this too. I don't know what's going on." The 6th level divine beast heard this and struck the stone with one palm. In an instant, the mountain fell with a roar. Then he sat slumped on the top of the other mountain with a sad look on his face. Without the concentrating flower, how could his lover survive? The beasts and gods looked at the empty mountain area, and some gods with low strength took the opportunity to escape. Unexpectedly, he was blocked by the barrier of the 6th-level divine beast. "What do you mean, Your Excellency?" the God Emperor asked angrily. The 6th-level beast raised its head and glanced at the gods. "You all came in from outside. Tell me, where are the concentrating flowers outside? It doesn't matter where they are. It means not afraid of danger. If they could get it easily, how could these gods come here to guard this plant?" Except for the God Emperor, everyone else shook their heads. They had no idea where the concentrating flower was in the God realm. On the other hand, the God Emperor frowned, as if he was considering whether to say it or not. Seeing his expression, the 6th-level divine beast asked, "Do you know?" "I know, it's useless even with your cultivation, otherwise, why wouldn't he go?" "Very dangerous. Very dangerous." "Where?" "The secret land of Montenegro. The secret realm of Black Mountain." The 6th-level divine beast shook his head to indicate that he didn't know where it was. He drove away the divine beasts and those divine men, leaving only him and the God Emperor. The 6th-level beast is not impulsive. Even killing all these people will not help. He raised his hands to the God Emperor and said, "Please tell me that I urgently need the concentrating flower to save people. I am very grateful." The God Emperor nodded. "The Black Mountain secret realm is in the Black Mountain Mountains in the middle of the God realm. It is a secret realm that is not open to the public." End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 727. Chapter 727, The Secret Realm of Montenegro. The 6th-level divine beast nodded. No wonder those gods just didn't know. He remained silent and continued to listen to what the God Emperor said. The God Emperor flew up and sat face to face with him. He had an idea in his mind. He had to make a good deal with this divine beast before he could think of a way to let him in. "What's your name?" the Emperor asked politely. The 6th-level divine beast reported its fist to the God Emperor, "Qingyuan." The God Emperor also clasped his fists. "Oh, God Emperor Qingyuan, I'm Xia Suyang, it's like this. The Black Mountain secret realm is controlled by the 4 major families in the Black Mountain Mountains, and disciples are arranged to go in and experience it every 1,000 years. This year it will start at the beginning of next month. Disciples who go in for training do not have to go in person, or they can have someone go on their behalf. I also had a spot, and I originally planned to go, but the secret realm was too dangerous, so I came here early. If the Qingyuan God Emperor wants to go, I can give you my place, but I have a small request, which is to bring me a concentration flower." What does the God Emperor think? Is the Emperor Suyang sure that there is a concentrating flower inside? Qingyuan made sure again. Indeed, there is a magical medicine garden in the center of the secret realm, but entering the magical medicine garden is not that easy, otherwise. Otherwise, why wouldn't he go? Except for the divine medicine garden, there is still no danger in other places, but whether it is dangerous or not depends on one's luck. Qingyuan agreed without hesitation. His partner couldn't wait any longer. He was going to try it no matter how dangerous it was. Then he said, "Okay, as long as Emperor Suyang helps me find a place." "Okay, it's settled." Suyang was overjoyed. "It's settled. When will we leave the tower?" He needs to prepare. There is still divine power here. After leaving, his partner will definitely be placed in the space inside his body. There is no divine power in the space inside his body. It would be great if there was a soul stone. Qingyuan's eyes were gloomy. He spent all the sacred stones for his partner, and even if he wanted to exchange them, he didn't have the sacred stones to replace them. Qingyuan glanced at the divine beasts in the distance and had no choice but to think of a solution for them. Suyang thought for a moment and said, "We can leave now, but if you have something to deal with, we'll meet at the teleportation array tomorrow." Qingyuan nodded, "Yes." The two reached an agreement and separated. After Yuan heard what they said, she wondered whether she wanted to go to the secret realm. There is not much to do in this 3-story tower, so why not go to the secret realm and come back? She is very interested in the magic medicine garden. The magic medicines in the black land of space are all low level, all first level. They are still the magic medicines promoted from the previous fairy medicines and cannot be used as medicine at all. The magic medicine in the red earth is of varying levels. If you want to refine the magic medicine, you probably won't have all the ingredients. After being promoted to a divine person, she has never made any medicine. The magic medicine she took was all robbed in the past. Those magical medicines will be used up sooner or later, so you have to refine them yourself. You need to have the medicinal materials to refine it yourself. It is not worth buying the sacred stone, not to mention the cost of the sacred stone. Her sacred stone was not used to buy medicinal materials. Yuan thought for a long time and made up her mind to go. The next day, Yuan waited at the teleportation array early. An hour later, Qingyuan and Suyang came one after another. The two only looked at each other before leaving the tower. Yuan hurried out. After leaving, she immediately flashed into the space and looked at them at the boundary gate. It is not yet time for the secret realm to be opened, so Yuan is making preparations in the space. After finishing preparations, she went to Han Mountain. "Grandpa. Here comes the girl, what's the matter?" Yuan nodded and sat down opposite Ming Xiao. "What's the matter, girl? Grandpa, does he know that there is a secret place in the Black Mountains?" "In the Black Mountains? The secret land of Black Mountain? I've never heard of it." "Grandpa knows about the Black Mountain Mountains. Does this girl want to go?" Ming Xiao shook his head. "No, just asking. I heard someone talking in the tower, so I came to ask." "Oh, the Divine Tower is a good place to improve your cultivation. Back then, my grandpa only reached the 8th floor. Legend has it that no one can reach the 10th floor. I wonder if anyone from behind can go up," Ming Xiao said regretfully. Yuan shook her head. "No one has been up there. 10,000 Buddhas said it was a box, but no one has been up there." "How do you know it's a box?" Yuan has long had doubts, but she has never thought about it before. Now that she is not strong enough to reach the 8th or 9th floor, she has not delved into this issue. "I was chatting with my grandpa today and asked him casually." 10,000 Buddhas, Ming Xiao was surprised. That legendary monk could fight against 10,000 Buddhas, the 10 great ancestors of the Tiandao sect, with one person? Isn't he dead? Yes, he is in the space now. When he just rescued you, he asked him to help you check whether Ming Ao had tampered with your soul. Yuan pointed to the Wanfo temple outside the barrier. Ming Xiao's eyes lit up and he said, "Girl, can you let Grandpa see him?" "What's the problem?" "Grandpa can chat with him if you have anything to do in the future." Yuan smiled, feeling that her grandfather still admired the great monk. The great monk is not interested in people from the Tiandao sect. I don't know if the two of them have anything to talk about. However, she still transmitted the message to 10,000 Buddhas. The silent 10,000 Buddhas suddenly heard Yuan's message. He sighed helplessly, then left the 10,000 Buddhas temple and came to the Soul Mountain. "I've seen the divine monk." Ming Xiao saw him coming and immediately greeted him. 10,000 Buddhas waved their hands and immediately clasped their hands together. "Amitabha, donors don't have to be so polite." 10,000 Buddhas return a gift. Just kidding, the landlord's grandfather did not dare to accept this gift. The holy monk is so polite. Come on, sit down," Ming Xiao greeted with a smile. Yuan pursed her lips and watched the two of them being polite, and she just smiled. "You guys just talk, I'll get out of the way." 10,000 Buddhas glanced at her and felt startled. He was like a god. It was so fast, but his cultivation was not very solid. "This girl," he said, "the donor should work hard to cultivate her skills now and should not make any more rash advances." Yuan said, "Me." Wanfo said angrily, who else can be here besides you? Mingxiao is a soul body, how can he not cultivate solidly? Oh, thank you very much. Yuan thanked her and looked inside her danshan. As expected, as 10,000 Buddhas said, the divine power in her danshan was somewhat insubstantial. She hasn't noticed it yet. She glanced at 10,000 Buddhas gratefully, said hello to the two of them, then left Soul Mountain and went to the practice room to meditate. Haishan Mountains, today is the day when the secret realm of Haishan is opened. Qingyuan followed everyone to the top of a mountain. This is a floating mountain, very high and very strong, and the divine power on it is very strong. Qingyuan found a place to wait. Yuan, who was in the space at this time, asked Xiaoji to look for the secret realm, but Xiaoji did not find it this time. Master, the level of this secret realm should be very high, otherwise there is no reason why I can't find it. Xiaoji comforted himself. Forget it, if you can't find it, we'll go in when it opens, please be careful. Okay, Master. Outside, everyone waited for a day and finally opened it at Qinji. Yuan waited for a while and entered the secret realm. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 728. Chapter 728, Black Mountain Secret Realm 1. Where am I? As soon as Yuan entered, she found that she didn't feel like she was on land, but like she was in the belly of something. Yuan immediately moved into the space and placed it on the other side of the forest, and then she stepped out. At first glance, it turned out to be a huge mythical beast, but this beast was dead and had no soul. Looking like that, he died not long ago. Yuan felt very strange. There was no injury on the body of this divine beast, but its soul was gone. I don't know the reason, so Yuan didn't study too much and stepped out. This time she was in a secret realm, but the place where she stood was a huge pit, where the mythical beast lay. Yuan flew out with a movement of consciousness. It turned out that she was in a grassland. Buzz buzz. Suddenly, many fist-sized black-striped wasps flew from all directions. Soul-eating bee, Yuan was shocked. How could she encounter this thing? Soul-eating bees are an ancient vicious insect that specializes in devouring divine souls. What they are best at is attacking divine souls. It is the buzzing sound they make, specializing in the soul. No wonder the divine beast has no soul. It turned out to be swallowed by the soul-eating bee. Yuan had no choice but to enter the space and leave through the boundary gate. Once targeted by soul-eating bees, there is almost no possibility of escaping. Their speed is faster than that of monks, so it is almost impossible to escape. Yuan observed 3 minutes of silence for the other monks who came in, hoping that they would not encounter soul-eating bees. There was no way she could bring this soul-eating bee in. As soon as it smelled the soul power, it wouldn't destroy her space. There is no way to destroy them, there are too many and they are too powerful. Her soul is protected by a divine weapon, and she cannot withstand more than 10 breaths. But you can take a look at their nests. The soul-eating bee's nest must have soul veins. If it is a high-level one, she will accept it. Without the soul vein, the soul-eating bee cannot survive for long. Over time, it may become extinct. So Yuan asks Xiaoji to search here. After a few dozen breaths, Xiaoji found it, and it was a high-level soul vein. Yuan was so miserable that she immediately collected the soul vein. Huh, how come all the soul-eating beehives came in? Yuan found out after finishing the collection. She was stunned. What should she do? Is it possible to return the soul vein? That's impossible. Once it enters her space, it's hers. There's no reason to give it back. Then destroy those soul-eating bees. Yuan imprisoned the 2-foot-long hive to prevent the soul-eating bees from coming out. Wait until she is free to pick them up. When the soul-eating bees outside felt that their peak nests and soul veins were missing, they buzzed like crazy and looked around. Seeing this, Yuan quickly ran away. She came to the center of the secret realm, where Su Yang said there was a magical medicine garden. She has no interest in fighting the divine beasts, her purpose is the divine medicine garden. Yuan stood outside a barrier. From outside the barrier, she could clearly see that there were towering trees, various divine plants and grasses, and various divine beasts. Like a zoo. But there is not a single miracle medicine. Then when Su Yang said it was dangerous inside, did he mean these mythical beasts? Yuan looked at it for a while, then reached out to touch the barrier, and passed through it. Isn't this barrier too weird? Yuan guessed whether the barrier could be entered or exited, otherwise the divine beasts inside would not escape. With his hand passed, Yuan raised her feet and followed in without any hindrance. Yuan immediately became invisible as soon as she entered. She couldn't defeat so many mythical beasts. However, a mythical beast still discovered her, and kicked a big hoof towards her hiding place. So violent, Yuan chuckled and quickly got out of the way. Glancing at them a few times, Yuan walked towards the center. There were many mythical beasts along the way, some of which had reached the 9th level. Yuan smacked her tongue. She was stronger than her spiritual pets. She would wait and see if there is a pure-blooded divine beast and contract one. After walking for about an hour, the woods became sparse, and I actually saw the appearance of a village. Yuan paused in her footsteps and looked around with her spiritual consciousness. There were actually people living in the village, and they were all monks. She frowned. What kind of situation is this? How could the promised medicine garden become a village? Su Yang couldn't have deceived Qingyuan, right? If you lied to him, why did you trick him into coming in? Isn't this a way to die? Yuan paused for a while and then continued to move forward, getting closer and closer to the village. As he got closer, he saw a clear stream running through the village. At a glance, it looked like a silver ribbon. There are nearly 100 houses scattered on both sides of the creek, including wooden houses, earth houses, and bamboo houses. Some of them are actually artifact houses. Yuan is very surprised to see them. At this time, there were children playing in the creek. Yuan took a closer look and the water in the creek exuded strong divine power. It was only then that Yuan noticed that the divine power here was very strong, which was very suitable for the growth of medicinal materials. After watching for a while, Yuan decided to go over and have a look. She was very curious about the people here. There is actually a living in the secret realm. Her divine eyes have seen it. This is not an illusion, but a real person and village. Before Yuan entered the village, she was discovered by a little boy who looked to be about 10 years old in the river. He pointed at the invisible Yuan and said, "Ah, look, a sister has come." "Where, Xiao? What did you see?" asked an older child. Obviously he couldn't see Yuan. Yuan felt a creepy feeling in her heart. She was invisible and could still see this poor kid. Is he a human being? Yuan stood still. The boy came over and smiled sweetly at her. "Sister, are you from outside?" Yuan nodded and said nothing. "Sister, you're in but you can't get out if you don't show up yet. Don't worry, we won't hurt you." Yuan glanced at a group of little brats who couldn't see the cultivation but had supernatural powers. She laughed dumbly and then appeared. She wanted to see what kind of monsters the people here were. "Little brat, my sister came here to look for the magic medicine. Do you know where to find it?" Yuan smiled slyly at the little boy. When the little boy heard that she came in to look for the magic medicine, his face turned ugly. He turned to look at the other children in the river, and they all shook their heads at him. The little boy turned around and said in confusion, "Sister, we don't know either." Yuan reached out to touch the little boy's head, but he dodged it. Yuan's eyes flashed. "It doesn't matter if I don't know. Can my sister be a guest at your house?" The little boy hesitated and shook his head. "Let's go, Xiao Wu, let's go back." The children in the river all got up now and called the little boy. The little boy glanced at Yuan, turned around and ran back to the village with the children. Yuan looked thoughtfully at the children running into the village. Just now she wanted to touch the boy's head. Her speed was extremely fast, but she dodged them. It was very interesting. Yuan raised her lips. Now that she had appeared and no one attacked her, she strode towards the village. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 729. Chapter 729 Humanoid Magical Medicine. After entering the village, something strange happened. The village suddenly disappeared out of thin air, leaving behind a field of weeds. Looking up, this piece of wasteland covers hundreds of acres. Yuan instantly became vigilant. No living creature could be seen where her eyes scanned, and the mythical beast in the distance also disappeared. Such a weird thing, this is the first time Yuan has encountered it since she started cultivating immortality. She really doesn't know why. She stood still, with all her consciousness turned on, to see what was going to happen. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, there was a sound breaking through the air from all directions, and countless vines were attacking her like snakes. Yuan raised her lips and said, how could nothing happen? She wanted to see what was causing trouble. She waved her hand, and little purple appeared on her fingertips. She waved her hand, and little purple appeared all over her body. Fire overcomes wood, she still doesn't believe these things can get close to her. Sure enough, the snake-like vines stopped immediately and waved about a foot away, but did not dare to move forward. Haha, Yuan smiled, that's interesting and very smart. Only then did she look carefully at these snarling vines, and she realized that these were plants she didn't recognize. Yuan carefully searched for information about these divine plants in her mind. It's a pity that there is no one with the same number as the one here. But it doesn't matter if you don't know them. Aren't these divine plants afraid of Xiao Zi? Yuan simply flew towards those vines. Those vines shrank back in fright. Yuan smiled evilly and chased after them to see where their lair was. After chasing for about 10 miles, the vines suddenly shrank underground again, and in an instant they disappeared. Yuan did not let go of the search, but took Xiao Zi away. Sure enough, as soon as the divine fire was withdrawn, those vines suddenly appeared again and attacked her. Brush, a vine was thrust straight into her chest. Ding, when the vine touched Yuan, it made a sound like hitting metal. The vine trembled, and immediately shrank as if it was hurt by the impact. Seeing that the other vines could not attack her, they changed their attack to binding her. Yuan did not resist and allowed them to bind her. A few breaths later, Yuan was tied into a rice dumpling and pulled down by the vines. They stopped a foot below the ground, but did not let go of her. Yuan then let go of her consciousness and eyes and discovered that there were many things like tree roots here. The vines wrapped around her body came from these tree roots. This thing is so strange. Suddenly, Yuan smelled a familiar scent on the root of the tree. It was the scent of a person who was in the village just now. Yuan looked at the pile of tree roots surrounding her curiously, and asked, "Are you from that village?" The roots of the trees turned a deaf ear. No one answered her. Yuan rolled her eyes, thinking there was nothing she could do with them if they didn't respond. And she didn't like being here like this. With a sudden movement of consciousness, she flashed into the space. She also took the tree roots that bound her into the space and placed them in the red earth. She stepped out of the red earth herself. She wanted to see if the village roots would run away. Let's take a look at what that thing is. Long time. The tree root saw that the prey it had was gone, and it was in a different place. The divine power here was much weaker. One of them moved. When Yuan didn't feel it, he suddenly stretched out the vine and touched the magic medicine next to it. When it saw that the magic medicine next to it didn't respond, it immediately rolled up the magic medicine by the roots. Swallowed up the magic medicine in the blink of an eye. "Oh, this magic medicine is so delicious, I haven't had it for a long time," the tree root sighed and burped. His voice was that of a teenage boy. Hearing that voice, Yuan had an idea. So she collected all the tree root-like things from the boundary gate into the space, and she stopped after collecting more than 100 of them. These more than 100 stones of different sizes take up all the empty space. Yuan isolated these more than 100 tree roots from the magical medicine. If these guys took her magical medicine, she would suffer a big loss. She doesn't have any magic medicine in the first place, so where can she get so many magic medicines for them to take? Similarly, the more than 100 tree roots were seen to have moved to another place, and some of them were very curious, rising out of the ground and looking around. At this time, a larger tree root came out of the ground and took a look. Ding tilted his head, as if he was confused. After a long time, it finally burrowed back into the ground, and saw other tree roots gathering towards it, as if it was their boss. The big tree root muttered quietly, "Don't you think it's strange that we changed places? We won't encounter any bad people, right?" Another tree root said, "King, was it the man with the divine fire who captured us before?" The big tree root settled for a while, then looked around again, and saw that they were still in a barrier, so he said, "It's possible, if you don't restore your original body, she will definitely think that we are useless if she sees that we are still like this. It's just an ordinary tree root, it should let us go." There were a few small ones who were obviously very scared. They crowded around the roots of the big tree and said, "King, will she eat us? King, didn't you capture her?" Dashugen said, "I don't know what is going on, so please be careful." Yuan listened outside, and based on the conversation between those tree roots, she was even more certain that the things turned into tree roots were those magical medicines. At the same time, she also believed what Su Yang said, and it was extremely dangerous. Indeed, without a few brushes, there is really no way to escape from the hands of these magical medicines, and you will definitely die at their hands. Even though they are all magic medicine, their attack power is not small. The previous blow to her chest, if she didn't have the divine clothing to protect her, she would have been stabbed by the magical medicine and died. It's just that Yuan really didn't expect that these magical medicines could actually change into human form or magical beasts. I believe that those magical beasts were transformed by these magical medicines. Otherwise, why didn't they attack her and put her into the village? They must have put her into the village intentionally, with the purpose of luring her into the middle and killing her. Yuan sighed and said that these magical medicines are really more powerful than the magical beasts. Some of the magical beasts are not even as intelligent as this. She found out that these were magical medicines, but she didn't want them anymore. These magical medicines were obviously meant to swallow the magical medicines to increase her own strength. She already lacked the magical medicines, so where could she get the magical medicines for them to devour? Furthermore, these magical medicines have already been transformed into human forms, and Yuan dare not use these magical medicines to refine medicine. It feels like she is not practicing medicine but training people. I moved them all out, but I couldn't bear to part with them. There were obviously high-level magical medicines in them. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 730. Chapter 730 Humanoid Magical Medicine 1. Yuan is so confused, should she let it go or not? But they have all been put into her space, and they have come here, so they cannot go back empty-handed. She has never returned home empty-handed. Yuan thought for a while and decided to put all the magic medicine into the space first, and talk about the rest later. Furthermore, she was also very curious. It was said that the magical medicine could not transform into a human form without going through a thunderstorm, but all of these magical medicines actually transformed into a human form. Everyone in the cultivation world knows that it is impossible for ordinary plants to survive the thunder tribulation without special skills or human help. This is still a secret realm. The laws of ordinary secret realms are not established, and it cannot cause thunder disasters. Moreover, these magical medicines have all turned into human forms. It's really weird. If the mythical beast wants to transform in advance, it can take the transformation grass. Are these magical medicines also swallowing the transformation grass? This is so ridiculous. Yuan thought for a long time but couldn't come up with a solution, so she simply circled another place on the red earth and moved all the things similar to tree roots in the barrier into the space. It took her a day to collect all the tree roots into the space. Of course those mythical beasts have long since disappeared. Yuan knew that those mythical beasts had long since transformed into tree roots and were now all in her space. At any rate, no one ran away, they were all taken in. Thinking that so many magical medicines exist here, there must be divine veins to support them. With so many magical medicines being collected into the space, the divine power in the red earth will be difficult to support them, and it will also affect other magical medicines in the red earth. So if there is a divine vein here, it must be taken away. Then she asked Xiaja to search for any divine veins under the barrier. Xiaja nodded and went to work immediately. Not long after, Xiaja exclaimed, "Master, look what's over there." When Yuan heard Xiaoji's exclamation, she felt happy. Is it true? She looked with her consciousness and saw that opposite the boundary gate, there was a large sacred stone mine. In the middle of the sacred stone mine, there were several large pieces of purple ore. Is that a divine crystal? Yuan was shocked. The divine veins here provide so many magical medicines for transformation, so it turns out that there is this divine crystal. Divine crystals are things that can produce divine veins. Only with divine veins can one have divine power, and then divine stones can be produced. Yuan didn't know what to say at this time. She could also get this kind of treasure that was like a cash cow. It can only be said that this is a person with great luck. This trip is very worthwhile, even if there are not those magical medicines that have taken form, it is still worth it. Yuan moved her divine veins into the red earth without saying a word. As soon as the divine veins entered the earth, they immediately took root in the red earth, and the divine power in the red earth suddenly increased several times. Yuan covered her mouth, it was too unexpected for her. From now on, there is no need to increase the magical power in the red earth. These magical powers are enough to cultivate 9th level magic medicine. She sat on the ground, and after the excitement in her heart had passed, she planted the magic medicine that she had pulled out before. After processing it, she stepped out of the space to see if there were any other discoveries. After she came out, the boundary was desolate, with nothing but some weeds. Yuan glanced around again and determined that there was no magic medicine here. Thinking of what Su Yang said about the concentration flower, Yuan sighed in her heart. Even with Qing Yuan's strength, she couldn't get it. She got it and didn't know which one was the concentration flower. Even if she wanted to help them, she couldn't help them. But when she found a way in the future, she wanted to give each of them a concentration flower. She received such a big benefit as a reward for providing information to them. Boom! Suddenly there was a loud noise, and the land shook violently, and then sank suddenly. It happened so suddenly that Yuan was instantly buried in the ground. Bah, bah, bah. Yuan rushed out of the ground, spit out the dirt in his mouth, and looked up. He saw that this place had become a basin, and the barrier was broken. There would be no more medicine garden here. Yuan was so embarrassed that she emptied out all the other people's magical medicine gardens as soon as she arrived, even the divine veins were not spared. However, secret realms are ownerless things. Whoever has the ability to get something is her ability. The movement here attracted people who came over. They flew over in a hurry, saw that the barrier was broken, and immediately rushed in. When they saw the newly revealed basin, everyone was extremely shocked. You can see Yuan standing in the basin, and some people immediately flew down to surround her. "Excuse me, this goddess, what just happened here, and where is the medicine garden here?" A deity suddenly attacked Yuan. "She is the only one here, still standing here." Yuan was still lamenting about the destruction of other people's magical medicine garden. She didn't notice how fast these gods were. She shook her head and said, "Senior, I don't know what happened." "Then why did you come to the divine medicine garden so quickly?" The goddess narrowed his eyes and asked her. She, a little god, arrived at the divine medicine garden so quickly. Even he went through all kinds of hardships to get here. Yuan shrugged. This junior was here when he teleported in. "Huh, no, why haven't our four major families seen this person before? Are you someone from outside?" Someone recognized Yuan's unfamiliar face and asked her first. Yuan nodded. There was nothing wrong with her being an outsider. The other people looked at each other and stopped talking. If people from the four major families don't want to come in, they can invite someone, but it's not someone from outside the clan, but someone from the four major families. It doesn't matter if not, there is another way, then this person will be a member of the four major families from now on. Whoever is called belongs to that family. If the person disagrees, there is only one word: death. Only dead people cannot tell secrets. "Which family did you come in for?" They asked her again with slightly narrowed eyes. He always felt that this little goddess behaved very strangely. And she must know about the divine medicine garden. There was the magic medicine he needed in the divine medicine garden. Now that the divine medicine garden is gone, it is probably related to this little goddess. In the world of cultivation, you cannot underestimate a person, otherwise you will suffer a big loss. Yuan looked at the sharp eyes of the god. She had not found out clearly which four major families they belonged to, let alone made nonsense of any of them. Just why did she tell him? This deity is really annoying. Yuan glanced at him, and his consciousness flashed into the space. Let them find it. Yuan entered the space and left the secret realm directly. There was no need to wait for the things in hand. If the secret realm was closed and could not get out of the small world, it would be a big trouble. This is unlikely, but not impossible. Yuan left the secret realm, and instead of rushing back to the space, she went to a market wearing wanyan. The red earth is rich in magical power, so she has to buy the seeds of the magical medicine and plant them herself. Soon, she will be able to use the magic medicine. End of this chapter.